what are the different kinds of roles in data science or adjacent positions that are needed to fill all of those different kinds of demands?
I think you can hear in that discussion of grid optimization a need for pretty classic systems engineering and optimization knowledge. That is a huge area of research with such meaningful impact on so many people's lives. There's a lot of excitement about these technologies and also a lot of caution to that utilities exercise in their decisioning around who they'll work with and what success looks like. So the quality of that research and the depth of it is certainly a fun challenge and a place that it is fun to think about. But as with any other data problem, sitting underneath that is getting the data. And the data engineering practice at Palmetto is so important. We are working with, like I mentioned, so many different players in this multi-sided marketplace. And to do a good job of making forecasts of demand and supply, we really want to understand the details of what's going on at every step in that residential solar sale and install process. And that means integrating with or pulling data from local utilities, local jurisdictions, and the requirements that your city may have versus my city on going solar, document specifics, and as well as integrating with a lot of publicly available data sets so that we can make intelligent predictions about the energy your home will use at any point of time in the year, image data to help us place panels. So that data engineering and data platform maintenance component is really key for enabling all these different problems. And the model we're pursuing at Palmetto is very federated beyond that. So there's, I'd say, like a centralized ML research function and this centralized data engineering and platform development. And then because there are so many business problems related to any different data sets and components of the marketplace and other problems we're working on, so we have analysts embedded in many different parts of the company trying to marry that data with all of the business outcomes we're looking for and the challenging problems. And that role is the hardest to describe. It can take so many different shapes. And I think that's pretty normal anywhere I've worked, and maybe highlighted in the energy space just with how much is going on right now.
Yeah, getting smart people to be able to handle all of those diverse types of data flows that the data engineers are bringing in and doing various kinds of analyses that are needed to, allow decision makers in, I guess, any part of the business to be making better decisions, whether it's across the marketplace or the financial decisions or the energy flows. So it sounds like the main areas that I jotted down there as you were speaking were systems engineering, data engineering, machine learning research, and data analysts.
The whole
And I imagine there must be probably maybe as part of that platform team, there's probably software engineers acting as kind of like a glue between all these things, or maybe that's mostly the data engineers themselves.
I'd say we have pretty strong data engineers, but really close partnerships with software engineers. And something that's been really fun in this space is how collaborative the entire tech ecosystem feels right now. We all see this end goal of a more efficient grid and the big barriers to getting there. And there is a world where one company wins big at the cost of others losing, but it's not clear who that's going to be yet. And it is clear that nobody's doing it alone. So I'm talking with other startups constantly who are, for instance, building an API aggregator so that I don't need to manually integrate with every single solar panel inverter. Instead, I might be able to have a standard format of data that is cleaned and validated through some other company that then provides that same service to people trying a lot of other things in this field. So speaking with people who are working on kind of different sub pieces of the tech stack has been really, really fun coming back to this space. So to your point about partnering with the engineering talent required, I don't think about just the engineers within a data team, but the broader ecosystem of engineering feels really collaborative right now in this space.
Sweet. And are you hiring for any of those roles? I imagine we have a lot of listeners who would like to be making a big social impact with their existing skills in this space. It could be data engineering, data science, data analysis, software engineering. I'm sure we have tons of listeners in those areas who are, already established as professionals who would like to be making a big positive social impact like you can be at Palmetto. Or we could have listeners who are maybe getting into the field and are, looking to be inspired by these kinds of possibilities for these application areas. So, are there particular areas that you're hiring for at this time?
Yes, it's mid-December when we're speaking right now. So as with many companies, not as many roles posted today as we close out the year. But one that is up on the site right now is an analyst role who would be focused on that financial underwriting area specifically. It's one of our newer areas, and so a lot of room to run in that role. And then hopefully next year, you would come to the Palmetto Careers page and see a lot more posted. But I'd also recommend there's a group called Work on Climate. They have a Slack channel, and I think it's a great resource for learning about roles available as well as people's path to finding jobs in the climate tech industry. Um, it's a challenging space to learn right now. Just there's so much going on, and so much of it is pretty new. There's been a ton of investment in clean tech over the last few years. The administration has put so much investment into climate friendly infrastructure and um, incentives that make VCs want to invest in this space. And so, if you want to work on climate, there's a lot of options, but they're not always the really big companies that are easy to find. So, I really appreciate the existence of the Work on Climate group.
Yeah. I'll be sure to include that Work on Climate link in the show notes. And now, we didn't discuss this before we started recording, Emily, but although it is mid December at the time of recording, by the time people hear this, it will be mid January. So there may be more roles already available on the Palmetto site. And something that we were talking about before we hit the record button was that you do anticipate quite a bit of hiring in the future for particular kinds of roles. So I don't know if you want to get into that more forward looking stuff, whether those roles are available immediately or not.
Yeah, I'll get into it generally. I think, curiosity about the types of problems I just described is really key. Those are the things we're going to be working on. They have to be exciting to you. And I would also say, in general, I always hire for humility. You have to be willing to learn from your colleagues. We're all learning about this industry as it develops in real time, and thinking you've got the answers doesn't help. We're looking for people who can bring expertise from different fields and know that they have that expertise and yet are willing to have a beginner's mind in a parallel topic or an adjacent topic. And so that's my method for building teams always, is people who are really willing to accept that there's this concept of being T-shaped, right? Where you're maybe very deep expert in one thing, but if you build a vertical bar chart of all of your skills, some of them are low and some of them go deep. And if you're going to work on some of those skills that you're not as deep in, being able to work with your colleagues and ask them questions. And then I would also say generalists are really valuable at startups overall, but also in the energy space. It may sound like I'm talking about a lot of hyper-specific terminology, and my background has muddled through this space in a couple different ways, but I think a lot of the value that I've brought to Palmetto is my background on marketplaces and consumer data, and it's not energy specific necessarily. So there are a lot of different skill sets that can move the needle. So don't think that you don't have an in.
Very cool. And yeah, so I hadn't heard of this T-shaped people idea before, but being broad across many skills and deep in at least one, I totally get that. It makes a lot of sense. I like the analogy. And yeah, so T-shaped people, they could come for any of these kinds of roles, I guess: systems engineering, data engineering, ML research, data analysis, software engineering. across the board, it's probably conceivable that Palmetto will be looking for those kinds of folks in the future.
Absolutely. And I stole that concept from a book called Analyzing the Analyzers, which actually my boss, when I worked at OPower, had us read at a team offsite 12 years ago. And obviously it landed. So recommend that. It's a little dated now, but the overall concept just really resonates with me. And it's a good read, short read.